Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today's Lunch and Learn session. Today's topic is on MyAssistant, Modifying and Creating Business Rules with presenter Jeff Pisetzner. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone will be in listen-only mode, so if you have questions, please type them into the questions box on the screen, and we will address them at the end of the session. If you need to step away, please do not put your phone on hold. If you have hold music, it will play for all the attendees. This webinar will be recorded, and we will email a copy out to everyone within a few days. I will now turn it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Krista. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jeff Pisetzner, and talk about today's agenda. We'll do a little rundown of our today's agenda. We're going to get into, before we actually get into the software, we're going to get into a little bit of the MyAssistant terminology, kind of taking a step back and go into the different components of setting up a task, the difference of conditions, emailing, and just different components of the task when you see it in the software. And then from there, we're going to move into the alerts. Now, when I was putting this agenda together, I was trying to think about just different applications of using MyAssistant and how it could be used by, at different points of how you're using the software. So, I came up with three broad areas as a way to use MyAssistant as a way to audit your setup, then more towards internal communications for the company, and then external communications to third parties. So we'll get into that in more detail as we move forward. And then the last part of it is taking the next step. And here, hopefully, at the end of today's session, that we will have provided you with some ideas that you can run with on your own, and then just ways to transition if you're not using the software. Certain ways you can transition to use it more effectively. So that being said, so some MyAssistant terminology, really breaking it down as defining what a task is. Basically, it's what do you want MyAssistant to do. Then there's different components of a task. When you're building that task, you have to define a condition, set a schedule, put an email, any sort of email that you want to attack with that task, and providing additional information with that task, and then setting up a notification. So let me show you what that looks like in the software. So when you actually log into the MyAssistant Designer, your screen is going to look similar to mine. It's going to actually just show you the components of a typical setup. Now, when you're looking at this, you can see that they're highlighted in blue. You've seen some of them I've already run already, just in preparation for today's session. But when you look at a particular task, you'll see the different components. So the task is, you're really saying, what do you want MyAssistant to do? When you build the condition is, what do you want MyAssistant to check for? And I'll get into actually building these. I'll show you some demonstrations on how to build these, but again, it's what do you want MyAssistant to check for in here? The scheduling. Well, when do you want to know? You could run it on demand or on a particular schedule. And then how do you want to communicate it? By email, and we could get into email directories, or you can set up a file attachment to a Crystal report. Any sort of additional information that might have to be set up with this task, where you can actually pull reports, pull reports along to be attached with that task, and for that notification. And then under notification options, just how often do you want to know? So just want to take a step back and what these components mean. So as far as using MyAssistant to audit your setup, when you're using MyAssistant to audit the setup, you want to think in terms of your workflow and how can it help you in your workflow. So think in terms of what are the required fields in your workflow. And there's certain benefits of that. It can certainly, it certainly can help those that are new to Sage 300 when you're doing some of your basic setups, whether you're setting up a job or setting up a vendor, and there's certain fields that you want to populate. This could certainly be helpful when you talk about implementing a new feature or function in the software. With the, this comes into play when we talk about subcontract compliance that just recently came out in 12.1. It's more of a proactive approach, and some of these, and just building these conditions is easy to create, and you could keep it simple. And with that being said, came up with some ideas. And again, I'm sure you'll have a myriad of ideas that you have, in your own organizations. But these are ones that some are in the software, some that I built for our presentation, and I'll go through a few of these with you today. So let's talk about we'll talk about jobs without a prefix. This is actually a predefined one in the software. So let's switch the screen. So this is actually one that's out of the box. Job where there's no GL prefix that has not been entered. So if you wanted to run this task, you can always right-click and hit Run. Now there's two options, is Run and Send. But let me actually go into the task itself. And the crux behind some of these tasks is the conditions. When you're looking at these conditions, you hit Modify. Now the ones out of the box you cannot, so you'd have to copy this. But what this condition is looking for is the job record, if the status of the job is closed and a prefix is null. So that means if that field is blank, then send me a notification. So let's just run it. I could do a run, or I could run and send. And I could have made this as part of an email. So I'm just going to go into my email really quick. And my assistant just gave me a brief email, and I certainly could have expanded upon this. And I certainly could have expanded upon this by adding more columns. Subcontracts with commitments missing an actual start date. Well, if there's clients out there that are considering to use subcontract compliance, the actual start date of the commitment is required. So setting up this particular, are you with me? Did I lose it? Bear with me. So in this particular one, I set up the actual commitment to look at the start date. And if it's no, I made that part of the task and it would send out that notification. So to show you how to build, just to show you how easy it is to build one, I'm going to go to File and define a condition. So this is kind of where I start to build the condition. So let's say, for argument's sake, that I wanted to have a condition out there to, again, check out my setup, and we're looking more for service management, sites without a tax group. I'll go to the application itself, and again, the condition is, what do you want service management to check? So I'm going to check my service sites. And I'll just copy and paste it down here. And then I'm going to look for the field that I want to check. And tax group equal to blank. And I'm going to test it. And I'll grab some data. At least I know it tells me it's working. And if while you're checking it, if you want to see other information, you can actually add the columns to at least to validate your condition. So once that I know that it works, I'll let save and close. Now at that point, where I can go from here is I can actually start building the task. And I'll go down to my condition. And I could select it. And since I've created the condition, I have the built-in conditions, but if this is one that you created, it's going to fall under the user conditions. And again, I might want to test it again. And then go to the next screen, and then I can determine how often do I want to know. And then apply the email. And then you can actually pull these fields in the body of the email, or just pull it in the columns that you want to see on that email. And if there was any additional information I can attach. And again, determining how often do I want to know. And check my email. Unless I put my email in wrong. Let's try that one more time. Let's try one more time. Nervous fingers. Let's try it again. All right. There we go. And here just shows other types of ideas how you can audit, as a way to audit your setup. And certainly in these ideas that we're presenting here, you can see, how they can impact your workflow. So I mean, I could show customers missing a statement flag if you're using statements. This is one of my favorite ones, bank accounts not complete. And why is that important? Well, if you don't complete your bank account setup, you can't use the full fund. You can't do your bank recs in the software. So that one's, again, I took the same approach. Take a look at the task. And the condition that I built. So basically what I did in here is when I built the condition, I just looked at two particular records on the bank account itself. I just looked at the status. So in this particular one, if this is something that you're considering using, it looks something like this. What do you want MyAssistant to do? Bank accounts, let's say CM, check for bank accounts not completed. Give it a category to organize it in the software. What do I want it to check? Now, I mean, I can grab my existing condition, but I'm going to do it as a new condition for our discussion today. Condition, give a name. Where do I want to go to cash management? And what do I want to check? Okay, what is it? Set up account status. And in here, when you find the field, and even if you're not sure what is in those fields, you can always right-click and view the data. So I could say, is equal to not started, or, and I could have just said equal to not completed as well. View the data again. Or setup status is equal to so I have MyAssistant checking for these two conditions. Save and close, and then you can continue with putting the schedule in an email. And that one actually looks like this. I have one already in there already. And you can get a nice friendly email to remind you to get those bank accounts completed. So again, it's just practical uses in just even in this area, just for things to audit your setup. You know, things that you might be missing in your day-to-day flow. And those are those are pretty easy to use. Talk about one. Vendors missing email addresses. Same approach. To a new task. What do you want MyAssistant to do? Vendor setup. go down into the condition. I'm just going to build one from here. AP vendors. Put my condition name in here. What do I want it to check? We call our check all record. Yeah. So this get so right now I'm missing. So I have 60 records that are missing vendor email address 1. And what's important about this particular setup that they've made enhancements in MyAssistant to make the email directories a little bit easier by going directly to the record as opposed to maybe going through address book. So that's why that's where it makes it a little bit easier. So again, some of these ideas you can use. You might come up with stuff on your own. And I think it's really a perfect way to certainly segment into MyAssistant, especially if you're new to Sage Timberline. Let's talk about company alerts. Things that you want to be alerted. Overstating the obvious is yes, we want good data. Certainly requires an action to be taken, and I think it's going to make you take a look at some of your workflow procedures. And here's some ideas in here that you can utilize. Some of these, it's the ones in parentheses that came with the software, and we could go through a few of these. So, I mean, we'd want to be alerted if our bank balance was too low. Deposits entered into this, deposits posted into the system, you may want to know. So we'll take a look at some of these. Maybe if you have journal entries posted directly to a specific account or to control accounts, you maybe want to be alerted on that. I try to, when I put this presentation together, I was trying to come up with just a good cross segment of different aspects of the software. From the vendor side, maybe AB invoices without AB invoices from your subs without commitments. You may want to take a look at that. Vendor invoices posted with a future accounting date. This actually came up when I was speaking with my clients last Friday. The importance of this one. And our discussion was a little interesting because I was looking at it from the accounting side, he was looking at it from the job cost side, and the same alert really had two purposes there. But certainly that's certainly a strong alert, and just other ideas that we can take a look at. And some I built in there for service management. This is one that I typically get asked for is, let me know when my balance is, my inventory quantities are in the negative. Some of the work order items that have been billed with zero amounts. So we can take a look at some of these in MyAssistant. So let's cancel out of here. All right. Go into cash management. This is a particular one. So this is a particular one that actually comes with MyAssistant. Go bank accounts and balance under a specific threshold. Going to right click and open. Now in some of these particular ones you can actually customize the condition. I'll show you that in a second. So this particular one is set up to look for the register balance that's less than $1,000. You could certainly determine your threshold, or you can copy this condition if you have a higher tolerance. You can specify the volume values. It makes the comparison. You can set the schedule, so how often do you want to know? And certainly we talked about those emails before. So if I wanted to send out run that notification, and then I would get a friendly reminder that I would get that email saying that that balance was below the threshold. GL entries posted to a loan account or note. I had a client that asked me about this last week. I actually set up a condition for that. And when I set up that condition, I actually copied it from an existing one. So what I did in this one is I had it looking at the current transaction. I have it looking at a specific account, and the application of origin is general ledger. So this basically says is check all my general ledger transactions that are posted to this particular account, and the application of origin meaning that it was recorded directly in general ledger. But instead of me setting up me setting it up this way, what I did was I wanted to see what was available and see how I can use them to my advantage. So in looking at them, in my defined conditions, don't hesitate to go into these built-in conditions. And look for one, and I guess the best way to say is look for one that's kind of closely resembles of what you're looking to do. So in here, I opened up the condition. Now the ones that come with MyAssistant you can't change. As you can see, it's grayed out. But I took the determination and said, well, this resembles of what I was looking to do. So what I did was copy it. And then gave it my own naming convention. Now, when I've gone from client to client, I've seen what clients will copy, and they just say copy of copy of copy. Don't be afraid to give it your own naming convention. All right, now back to note account. and now I could pull what I need from the program. So I'm not really looking for a control account, so I don't really need this. I know that I need an account. Now maybe I don't know what it is at this point, but I can always view the data. And assuming that I know what I'm looking for at this point, I could put the GL account in this particular example. And then test it. And then you can, put your description in accordingly. So that's certainly another way to create a business rule. Simply copying what's there. Invalid entry to control accounts. Let's take a look at that one. And that's in the general ledger. This is one that comes out, this actually comes with MyAssistant. And again, I'm going to open the task. Notice again, I can't edit the ones that come out of MyAssistant. But you saw before that when I went to go investigate some of the conditions that were there, I was able to copy this one and make it one of my own. And again, you can run and send the task. You get anything in blue. And that's good. In this case, it's a good thing that nothing was posted nothing was journalized directly to a control account. Another one that's out of the box, jobs with overtime. You can look at a different segment of the software. This one I'm going to activate. This is a customized condition, so I can how often do I want to know? At what time? Who do I want to put on the email? And this is where we can look at our email directory. Leave that blank for now. And the ones that default have reports that get attached. And how often do I want to know? So one that I built as an idea is AP checks paid to a specific vendor that cleared the bank. This is one that I actually built. cleared. So I give it, what do I want MyAssistant to check? The condition. And how often do I want to know? When do I want to know? And any information that I want to see. So that's what I put on the, that's what I have to put those columns on that email. So again, just ideas of just company alerts to, internal alerts. Just on the service management side. Common question that I get. In this particular one. I build my task. Built my condition. So this particular one is a straightforward condition of I'm excluding a particular location, and I'm just looking at the trucks and anything that's less in quantities on hand less than 0. And we'll get this one out. So we'll take a look at what that looks like in an email. Okay. Now I got the email. And this particular one shows me my truck, the part. If I had anything on order, I included those columns. So I have this one to actually do a grouping by the particular truck. So the way I was able to group that is when you're setting up your columns for your email, you can when you literally can drop and drag columns into into particular. You can drop and drag columns, or put it right as part of the body of the email. So the last particular area that I want to go into is moving into using MyAssistant to communicate with third parties. And I'm sure again we could think of a myriad of ways to do this, and it goes without saying, it certainly requires good data, and becomes a more proactive approach. You could set up reminders to contact a vendor or contact a customer. So I have two particular ones that I'll show you. One was related to the vendor. Was requesting for updated general insurance. But how I did this one is I actually, again, what I said before, is see what's available. So how I did this one is I copied the one from, in this particular one, send a vendor request for updated contact information. I pretty much used that one. I said, this looks like what I'm looking for. So I took a look at it and went into the conditions to see how it was set up. And then from there, I ended up copying the condition so I can edit it. So this particular one, I copied the condition down, but I added my own spin on it. Said, well, I'm only looking for general liability insurance. So I kept the same condition and just added an and looked for that field. And I could continue to do that, going to this particular record. And then I was comparing that particular field to the current date. That condition is true, generate the notification. I'm actually going to run this. And some emails probably went out. That's Storm, huh? And it would look something like this. Now, when I copied that condition, when I actually copied the task, I selected the task, right-clicked and hit copy. Since I knew I was going to, I didn't want to take the, I didn't want the condition. I didn't want to copy in the condition, so I wanted to make sure that I left that unchecked, but I wanted to open it. And again, I could have renamed the task. But when I copied it, it brought down everything that was associated to what was built. And that's where the email came in. So when I wanted to edit the email, I just took out the fields that were here and I put in the fields that I required. And I just took out what I didn't need. Another external communication I did in the area of service management. Same approach, going into the tasks and conditions. This particular one, I set up a preventive maintenance confirmation, a reminder. And I built the condition, and I basically said that, just my database is looking at, taking if it's a preventive maintenance work order, looking at the field that drives the schedule date for PMs, and then just took the difference between the current date and the PM schedule date. And if this condition is met, it will generate a letter for that particular account. On the email, while I could have put something in the body of the email, the difference here is I attached a crystal report. So again, it's, the email is what is it that we want to communicate and how. And you saw different options, whether we put in the body of the email, we use the fields you're dragging in there, or attach or report from Crystal. Okay. She went through. And that's what I would have set it up to come to the specific customer, and they would have gotten a letter that would have looked something like this. So as you can see, there's ideas that you can use for third-party uses. So what's the next step? Well, what you want to do is you want to take consideration of what do you want MyAssistant to alert you on. If you have it installed, hopefully this gives you some impetus to do so. And One way to start is even for our experienced users out there, is look at the stock reports and look at the condition list. And the way that you can get those reports is go into reports and go into tasks. I would heavily recommend printing out this report. I got too much going on. But I would have, like I said, recommend printing these two reports and taking a look and see what's available as a starting point. Then under File and Define Conditions, open up those conditions and see the built-in conditions. Come on. What come with the software. And you can define your own from there. And then implement. Just wrapping up, so what did we learn today? We learned, just took a step back into some of the terminology that exists in MyAssistant, showing you, various applications for MyAssistant's alert, bringing it down to 3 areas: a way to use it to audit your setup, setting up alerts for your company, more of an internal alert, and setting it up for third parties, and then taking the next step. Questions?
If you have questions, please type them into the questions box on the screen. Right now, we don't have any. I'll just wait a second.
Okay. Hey, Krista, did you get an email?
I did.
Nice. Hey, Krista, that storm hit New City.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
I thought I heard thunder in the background.
Yeah, I was worried about a blackout.
That's what I was worried about. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions, so if you think of questions afterwards, you can contact Jeff or me or Anthony, and we'll be happy to help you, and you can always reply to the email that you get later. We want to thank you all for attending today's session, and we'll be emailing it out later to all of you, and have a great day.
Thank you.